Okay. Hi, everyone. I think let's get started. My name is Charles Lee. I'm a Principal Group Engineering Manager at Microsoft. So this is my first Ignite. What about you guys? Have you been here before? Yeah? Yeah? How's it going so far? Good? Well, appreciate you guys coming here at the tail end of Ignite. And looks like we got a good group here. And I'm really excited to talk to you about Scheduler. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of history of both Scheduler and myself here. So who knows this reference, Memento? Good, just a few, really? So Memento is a movie that stars Guy Pearce, directed by Christopher Nolan, circa 2000. And it tells the story of an amnesiac who the movie tells the story backwards. And because he doesn't remember anything, sort of every moment is kind of this discovery. So let's kind of roll this back. This Monday, there was an announcement. So we announced Scheduler. And it's a service that you offload the meeting scheduling to Cortana. Okay, and so we updated, we have a website, a product page about Scheduler, and that maybe looks a little bit familiar. So if you have heard of calendar.help, that's what Scheduler is. And so when we announced Scheduler on Monday, it was an effective rebranding of that service. So we've been working on calendar.help for a while. In fact, this is how long we've been working on this. So Microsoft acquired the company that I had co-founded called Genie. And Genie was a scheduling assistant, much like Scheduler is. And you can see this acquisition happened in 2016. So I've been working on this for a while now. But if you look closer, I've been working on this since 2014. So I am deeply passionate about this subject and about the assistant, and I'm really glad that we're now in a place where kind of the technology has matured enough, and that we're in a place where Microsoft has really sort of pushed the technology, the edge of technology, to make this happen, and I think we're really sort of on the cusp of getting this to you guys, into the market. So I'm going to read you a quote from Mark Weiser in his 1991 The Computer for the 21st Century article in Scientific American. The most profound technologies are those that disappear. They weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they're indistinguishable from it. And I think that's what we're really trying to do with AI. Right? We want to make our experiences and devices center around people and how people work. Our vision is for people's experiences to be connected through the graph and leverage AI to give them that seamless connectivity, continuity across their applications and devices. So what Scheduler is really about that, about the productivity, about amplifying the skills to help you achieve more. So I'm going to borrow a quote. So Box, the CEO of Box, Aaron Levy, said in a Forbes interview, when he was asked about how do you measure a company's success in digital transformation, and he said, well, I think about it is about how narrow is that gap between my time and my energy and my output. And so digital transformation helps you narrow that gap. And I thought that's a great way to think about productivity. And so I kind of created this equation here. Output is equal to time plus energy. And we think that Microsoft 365 is all about reducing the amount of time and energy that it would take you to produce that output. And we provide those tools to amplify your skills, right? But we thought, there could be a new possibility. What if we can leverage the great work that we're doing in AI, in research, and in product, in the form, that's the ultimate form of AI, is in the form of an AI assistant that you can bring to work to help you accomplish the outcome that you desire even more efficiently. Well, more than just being efficient at producing the same level of output, we believe that the AI assistant is a multiplier to getting to that productivity. And so we're really excited about this. And so I want to talk to you about kind of your notion of digital assistants. Okay, so first of all, I think we're sort of really used to seeing these consumer electronics in the market, and there's a lot of them. So, you know, they're mostly voice-based, and they help you do a few different things. And according to a VentureBeat survey, the most frequent uses for these assistants on the market today are listening to music, checking the weather, and setting timers, right? So I personally kind of do all three of those frequently. So I think what that tells us is that, you know, maybe the AI technology is not quite there yet. I found this tweet. So somebody said, you know, I had to sort of blank out kind of all the names to protect the innocence, and plus I don't want to, you know, get sued for invoking a competitor's name here. But so it says, my parents got an blank for a Christmas, and all they do is shout at it and get disappointed by it, by all it can't do. I've been replaced by Alexa, and it's great. Okay, so these are what I would call first generation digital assistants. They sort of take kind of these direct commands. They're very transactional. You give them a simple task, and either they understand you or they don't, and then they accomplish that task and they're done, right? And they're mostly based on the technology that is used to interpret your utterance right at that time. And it is generally voice-based. It's ambient. It's kind of listening at all times. And I think we've seen in the news that, you know, there's some surprises that, you know, that you might not realize that it's more than your device that's listening to you. But ultimately, right, these are very simple tasks. You say, you know, play Taylor Swift or set a timer. But you've also now, because of, you know, I'm sure you've tried to say something and it comes back with I'm sorry, I didn't understand you. Can you rephrase that? And so you've learned to adapt to the grammar of these digital assistants, right? You know, for example, I would say play, playlist, you know, dinner. Like, why would I say that? I don't say that in real life, right? So if you think about it, could you ever bring one of these assistants to work, and would that be useful to you? Well, I don't think so. I don't think they're that useful, right? We think that a useful digital assistant at work has to be able to, first of all, handle complex tasks. Things like being able to schedule a meeting or analyze some information for a project. Maybe take notes and derive some action items. Or maybe, and here's a dream, maybe, hey, arrange travel to Ignite so that I don't have to worry about it, because that took me hours to do, right? And I still had to do last-minute changes. So these are complex tasks that we don't think that digital assistants are going to be particularly good at today. And then secondly, the AI technology. What can you understand? Well, I think as it turns out, that trying to be a generalist, to say that, hey, we understand everything you're saying, that's a pretty hard thing. But then when you narrowing that down to a specific domain, even that is pretty difficult, and it gets very nuanced. Language is a very, very nuanced thing. And so we believe that AI is not enough today. And of course, we're trying to kind of build the advanced technologies to kind of you know, get it there. But today we think that the AI needs to be augmented by human sensibility so that we can produce the right outcome for you, especially when it comes to work situations, when it comes to complex tasks. And most importantly, though, it has to be in the flow. You know, I've been working the booth a lot for this Ignite. And a lot of people have come up to me, and then we're standing in the booth for Cortana, and they'll ask me about the Cortana app. And I'll kind of turn around and ask them about, well, how would you use this? How do you kind of pop out into a separate app and to kind of do your work? And truthfully, it's not that great. So you really want to be in the flow of whatever you're doing to be able to contact and use your digital assistant so that it doesn't take you out of the context, right? It doesn't add cognitive load. You don't have to repeat the information to move it from one surface to another. And just helps you to stay within your normal business flow. Okay, great. So here's our vision. Our vision is to build these second-gen productivity assistants, right? So what kind of tasks do we want them to do? So we took a couple of surveys. We conducted one survey, and it's coming out of our group called Compass, where they engage with, I think, 30 to 40 of our enterprise customers. And we asked them a simple question. What are the tasks that you would like to delegate to an assistant? So digital or not, what tasks don't you want to do? Right. Number one, schedule meetings. And that's sort of far away, as you can see, over the other tasks. There's some other really sort of annoying tasks as well that you do on a day-to-day basis that you want to offload, right? Things like triaging emails, preparing for meetings, et cetera. And, and we're working, across Microsoft to help you with all those things. I work on the Outlook team, and so I know that we're making progress in those areas. And then there's a separate survey which we took from, I think it's DataBox, a little small writing there. And so this one's directed towards salespeople. And so they were asking them, what would you use automation tools for? And so obviously I've already given away the punchline here, but once again, scheduling meetings, scheduling calls comes out on top. Among other tasks. So clearly, there's a need there. So have you guys all picked up Satya Nadella's book, Hit Refresh? Right? I know Will over there has, right? We didn't just get the copy from the bookstore. We got the special employees version with hand annotations from Satya himself. But in the foreword of Hit Refresh, Bill Gates said, think of all the time we spend manually organizing and performing mundane activities, from scheduling meetings to paying the bills. So again, scheduling meetings is top of mind for Bill Gates. And he's always had this vision of having an AI assistant that you can offload these mundane tasks to. And mundane is a fairly benign word to use here, because it's really about things that are time-consuming, that are low value, things that you don't necessarily want to spend your time on. You have a skill set that you should be applying to other much more valuable tasks, right? So given all of that, I think sort of our work is pretty clear. I think we need to work on something that can really tackle this problem. And so I want to introduce Scheduler, right? So Scheduler allows Cortana to be your virtual scheduling assistant. And so before we kind of dig into how does this work, I think conceptually what we want to do is we want to offload this process of scheduling so that you can focus on your goals, let you get work done, decisions made, and maintain the relationships that you want to have. And this is all living in the email surface, okay? And I'll get into the how does this work in a little bit here. But it works much like having a real assistant, because when we look at what's the model that we want to follow. We look at how is this problem solved today. We know they're already being solved. If you were a VP, if you're a senior director, you're assigned an executive assistant, you don't have this problem because you can delegate this to someone else. It's somebody else's problem, right? And so we want to democratize this. We want to create an assistant that everybody has access to, particularly to solve this onerous task of scheduling. And so the way that, if you think about how your VP or your senior director typically interacts with their assistant, let's say if my VP, Gaurav Sareen, he's the VP of Outlook, wants to meet with me, his assistant's name is Crystal. He would say, hey, you know what? I'm going to add Crystal into this conversation so that Crystal can go ahead and find some time for me. And so the assistant should work the digital assistant should work in the same way, living in the email surface. It's that you communicate with, just like a real assistant in natural language. And of course, rumors of email's death is greatly exaggerated, right? Most of us still live in email. We're constantly either with our colleagues, with people external to us. Email is the sort of the big equalizer for everyone. So when we start to talk about this and we introduce scheduler to people, one of the first questions that I always get asked is, well, which Outlook supports this? So which Outlook do you guys use? What Outlook do you use? Outlook mobile, Outlook web? All of them. Well, I'm happy to say it's all supported. But what if you weren't on Outlook? Guess what? It's also supported because it's email. It doesn't matter what the client is, right? It works across all your devices, anytime, anywhere. I hear it buzzing. Okay, so scheduler, I'm going to get into the how here. So scheduler is a virtual assistant that helps you to manage your calendar and work with others to schedule meetings. Okay, so how do you use this? It's really simple. Step one, email Cortana to set up a meeting, and you can include some utterance about what you need. Something like, can you find a time that works for a Teams call? You can add the resources that you need. Teams is, for a conference call or maybe a conference room. Okay, step two. Step two has nothing to do with you. You don't have to worry about it. But Cortana is going to hand off to scheduler to access your calendar, to look for availability, and maybe it'll go ahead and book that meeting directly. Maybe it needs to negotiate with other people to get that meeting scheduled. But this is not, you don't have to worry about it. So step two, question mark. And step three, once the meeting is confirmed, a time is confirmed, Cortana will just go ahead and put it on the calendar for you. And you're the organizer. Really simple, right? So why is this good? Well, we think that number one, it's pretty obvious. It gives you time back. You're offloading this time-consuming task to your digital assistant. Get back to work, right? No interruptions. But the second one that's maybe a little bit more subtle is that it makes you superhuman. Why does it make you superhuman? Well, instead of you having to coordinate and be responsive and negotiate with other people, Cortana's doing it. And Cortana is a digital assistant, so it's got fast response time. It's always available. And if you were in a role where you're doing this a lot, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you simply, it's a set and forget it, right? You simply delegate to Cortana and you don't have to worry about it. And so there could be, tens, maybe even hundreds of different threads going on. and Cortana is able to keep track of them all. So a lot of people also then ask me, okay, great. So then is that what it does? It schedules meetings? Well, I think that we have a broader vision. And we took our inspiration from autonomous driving here, and our team defined kind of the 5 levels of a scheduling assistant. So time, obviously, is your most valuable currency here, right? It's finite, cannot be replenished. And so our goal here is, not only are we trying to save you time, we're trying to optimize that time, make that more useful. And so when it comes to scheduling, I think, this might be a little bit hard to read, but level 0 is really sort of no automation at all. It's a pretty static way of scheduling. You bring up a meeting form, you have static drop downs, you pick all the details, and you set it and you submit. And then the next level, level 1, we're starting to build some smarts into the calendar form, right? Things around suggesting a time for you and your attendees. Things like being able to show you which conference rooms are available so that you don't have to go and invite all the rooms that in your building just to see which one's available at the time you need. But that doesn't quite get us to this label of an assistant, right? So we really think to get to an assistant, it really has to be at least at level 2, where you have that delegation, where you can set it and forget it, where you can delegate to the assistant to organize some meetings, some scenarios, right? And then the next level that you want to achieve is to be able to really sort of do this hands-off scheduling. And that includes meetings that maybe you didn't even organize, things that are invitations that are coming in. Because the assistant knows you, the assistant knows your calendar, the assistant knows your time. It can sort of help you negotiate that in the same way that it can do the outreach if you were the organizer. And they can do that on individual scheduling requests. And you can pick and choose which ones you want to delegate to the assistant. But level 4 is where it's going to start to get interesting. Rather than thinking about each one of these meetings or events as separate things, is that you can start to tie them together. And you can start to think about, how do I optimize for my users' time, right? Think about all the times that people say, oh my gosh, I don't have any availability, but this meeting hasn't happened. Well, if you were to treat it like its own separate entity, you're simply going to have to keep looking, and you have to say, well, when can this happen? But if you're in control, if the system's in control of all of your calendar, all the events, it can start to look for things that it can sort of move around, be very dynamic. And things that can assess priority and urgency, and manage your calendar to where it can be optimized. And then the dream, of course, is to get to level 5. Can we get the assistant to now look across your organization's calendar, across all your users, and then to find ways to synchronize, to optimize for everyone's time, to make all those scheduling decisions optimal for everyone. And so where we are today, and for Scheduler, and by the way, it's in preview right now, and we're working towards getting this to the market. But we're trying to meet that minimum bar, is to get to that level 2 of the scheduling assistant. But why is this important? Why is this sort of kind of so hard to conquer? Is that the barrier to entry here is natural language, right? Natural language allows you to define things in a way that is outcome-based. You would say, my goal here is to have a meeting with somebody. My goal here is to have a meeting in 2 weeks or in December. But then I am not saying the how. I don't have to say the how. And so one of the things that we find, for example, is that our users tend to get ahead of us in defining where we should be heading because it's natural language. So when we initially started our preview, we didn't have the capability of being able to being able to book conference rooms. And we started to see a lot of users would naturally request that. And that kind of made us realize that that was a problem that we needed to solve. So natural language is super important here. And then, of course, being able to then create and manage the calendar events, being able to schedule and update, reschedule, and cancel. Okay, but now I want to kind of dig into that natural language part of it, and how do we build that? So, have you guys heard of the bot framework? Yeah? Yeah, we talked a lot about the bot framework this week. So bot framework is an enterprise open source platform that enables developers to build really rich conversation-based experiences using Azure and cognitive services, right? So we've been partners with them from the get-go for a long time. And so the thing about the bot framework is that it provides you with all the tools that you may need to build, deploy, and manage your bots, right? And the most important thing is that it's an enterprise-grade platform that gives you the ownership and control of your data. So we leverage the bot framework. And then on Monday, in Satya's keynote, right, he announced Power virtual agents, and that's powered by the bot framework as well, and has a lot of the elements that we leverage the bot framework for. And then, of course, we leverage Azure services to push all of our resources into running in Microsoft compliant Microsoft data centers. Okay, so the bot framework is great. It has all these popular channels that you can connect into, but we're going to focus in on email, right? So we've already talked about email being the surface that the assistant is on, and one thing that I want to point out is that the email allows us to keep track of multiple requests really easily, right? So that's one advantage of it. It's multi-threaded. It's multi-conversational. The other aspect of being on the email surface is that, we think of kind of a big differentiator with the digital assistant that we're proposing is that it's no longer a one-on-one experience. It is a one-to-many. So you being the organizer or the requester of the meeting, you're of course interacting with the service, but guess what? The bot also then interacts with other people on your behalf. So again, email really allows us to kind of do that. And then over on the right there, you can see that we rely a lot on the Microsoft Graph. So these are all the data, all the signals that's inherent in our exchange, and it allows us to look at people's relationships. It looks at calendar availability, and it also allows us to look up resources in the directory. So now, leveraging bot framework is great, and so you would say, well, Charles, why have you been working on this for 6 years if you could have just built it on bot framework? Well, it turns out it's not that easy. Trying to say that you understand natural language means that you really have to understand things that are being said naturally. And so to be able to do that, you really need to kind of dig in deep. You have to have some competency in that domain, right? For example, for the calendar space, we need to be able to understand complex time expressions or location requirements. And so we, as a team, innovate around natural language understanding. So we have models that detect intent and entities. So who here develops recurrent neural networks or convolutional neural networks? Anyone? No? Well, I don't either, but luckily, I've got people on my team that do. And that's what's necessary, really, to kind of get us to the level where it feels like a human experience to be able to interact with your digital assistant in a natural way. But then still, as much advanced technologies as we've built, it's still, pretty hard. Sometimes we still get ourselves into a place where are not sure what the user said. We have low confidence in what's being said. Or maybe situationally, we run into a deadlock. In those cases, what we're trying to do is trying to still learn from humans, right? And so being able to detect when that happens, being able to then provide the entry points to where we can escalate requests, essentially kind of to a secondary support, so that we can bring people in to help complete the workflow, to give you the result that you want. That's another area where we've really kind of innovated on. So that's a little bit about how that's built, but I would love to give you a demo right now about how this works. So first, I'm going to show you on my phone, because a lot of times you might be, let's see. All right, so this happens a lot. I'm constantly on my phone. I'm sure I'm the only one here. And so maybe it's late in the day, and I'm running out the door, and I'm in the elevator, and I check my email, and I see an email here from my colleague Warren, and Warren says, "Hey, great! The portal design is almost there. Should we review it together?" And so what should I do? Should I maybe wait till I get home and pop open my laptop, try to find when we have mutual availability? Or I can simply do this. I can bring my digital assistant in, Cortana. Say, Cortana, please schedule a meeting next week and book a room. The key word here is please, so I'll just send that off. And so this should, and I'll pop back here to show you what's happening right now, and then we'll check in on the request in a little bit here. Okay. All right. So the first part of the utterance, Cortana, please find time, could have been a full stop right there. I could have just said that. And why is that enough? Is because Cortana knows me, right? I've already kind of given her, actually, before this has come up a lot, and we've made this call this week, particularly around because we're releasing Read My Email, and in both feminine voice and masculine voice. And so if you guys have picked up one of these pins from the registration desk, the correct pronoun for Cortana is they and them, right? All right, thank you. So I've already told them my preferences. So I could have been a full stop right there, and Cortana could have just go ahead and schedule this meeting based on my preferences. But I actually provide a little bit more scope. I said next week and book a room. Next week, given is the time scope, and booking a room is the resource. But there's more than that. Next week is pretty open-ended, so when next week? Well, in my preferences, I've told Cortana my time zone, my preferred meeting duration, 30 minutes, my preferred meeting time of the day, and even which days I prefer to have meetings, right? So that means I can be as succinct as I want to and have Cortana still do the right thing. What about booking a room? Well, in your preferences, there's also a kind of favorites playlist of sorts for conference rooms. And so I've pre-populated some with the ones that I normally use. But that's not all Cortana has access to. Typically, what Cortana does is that we'll go and we'll try to respect your favorites, go through those rooms first and see if there's availability. And if not, we'll kind of pop out and look at what other rooms that you've typically used and book one of those that hopefully is available. And let me just do a quick check here. Yes.
So you, on that example, have 3 people. Your top meeting room is a 10-person room. Your second meeting is a 12-person room.
Yeah.
Does Cortana understand meeting room size? Because my facilities people will get very upset very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is about does Cortana understand room size? Because in my favorites list, the top one there is 10-person room and 12-person room. So absolutely. We actually tried to match the size of the room to the number of attendees. And so in this case, we'll try to go through the, again, my favorites list and look for the smallest room that would accommodate the number of attendees in my meeting. Okay. So I'm going to move a little bit faster here. I'm kind of running out of time. So what's going on with Cortana is that it'll go ahead and because the first meeting I had with folks that are within my organization, and so in the same way that when you open up your calendar and create a new meeting, you can go to your scheduling assistant, you can see other people's free busy status. Cortana can, with your consent, can do the same. So we can go in and take a look at when are the times that everyone's mutually available and triage those and find the most optimal time and book that and then just go ahead and send out the invite. Okay, but what about if I wanted to reschedule this meeting? You know, Cortana is meant to be kind of an assistant that's really managing the life cycle of your meeting. So I can just as easily say something in response to Cortana to say, hey, you know what, I need to reschedule this meeting. And Cortana will remember the context. Who were the invitees, what was the timing, and whether or not you needed a conference room. Okay. The other demo that I'm going to do is so you're saying, hey, this is great. Booking meetings internally is nice and easy. But then the real pain point is when I have to deal with people outside of my organization. I have to negotiate time with them. I have to send them lots of emails. And so Cortana can do that for you on your behalf as well. So I'm going to switch over to my laptop here. Okay, so I have an email here from a customer that's interested in my product. And here's something that not a lot of people have seen, even within internally to Microsoft, is that, first of all, you see the smart replies here below, and we detected the fact that there's an intent to schedule a meeting. And then because I'm a scheduler user, and it knows that, I can do a drop-down, and I get either the Outlook calendar or the Cortana Assistant. If I pick the Cortana Assistant, it sort of pre-fills this out for me with Cortana already in the to line there. It says, Cortana, can you help us schedule a meeting? And I'll just go ahead and send that off. And so again, I'll show you what's going on behind the scenes. So in that scenario, there was not just the external customer that I was interested in meeting with. I also had another colleague in there as well. So similar to that first example, because we have access to everyone's free busy information, we can look up what are the options that are available for the internal folks, gather those up, and then we send out an email now to my customer, lead A, and offer her those times. And she, at that point, and so actually this is, I'm gonna kind of interject here, and this is again something that's fairly new and not many people have seen it, is that in this case, lead A is actually a scheduler user as well, even though she's outside my org. What happens is those times that were sent out to her, it's actually decorated with her free busy status. So even for her, she can treat Cortana like her assistant so that she doesn't have to go outside the email surface, and she can see when she's free or busy. And then she can respond to that. She can easily say, oh yeah, all times work, or that, you know what, I'm going to be out for all the times you offer me. What about this other time? So Cortana can continue to engage lead A in a natural conversation until a time is confirmed. And once again, when a time is confirmed, we'll send out that invite, including if we had asked for a Teams call, for example, we'll send out the conference information. So what other things can you say to start a request? I mean, what we really want to do is to make this as natural as possible. So you don't have to say Cortana to start your sentence. You could, say it as naturally as possible. You can say, even direct it towards your recipient. Can you meet Wednesday or Friday next week? Or schedule a call every 2 weeks for us. You can really sort of have a wide range of different things you can say in regards to time. The other thing is that Cortana understands context. So if you say lunch, it knows that, well, lunchtime is generally during the noon hour. Converse to that, if you didn't say lunch, then we'll try to avoid the lunch hour as well. And then multiple time zones. That's a big problem that people always tell us about. So that's, again, something you can simply tell Cortana to pay attention to. I'm here in Orlando for Ignite, and I'm trying to meet with folks back home in Redmond. I would make sure to tell her, well, find a time that works for Redmond and Orlando, and then Cortana will go ahead and resolve that to a sensible time. And what about resources we need? And we've already talked about Teams and the conference room. What if you wanted to be more specific? For example, I know there's a Microsoft office in Tampa, which I've never been to. What if I wanted to meet with a colleague there? I would say book a meeting in a room in the Tampa office, and we'll go ahead and look for a room there. Okay, so ultimately, the value that we provide is, of course, time savings and also attention. We're saving you attention. Here's a quote from a magazine editor, Jacqueline Leo. She said, "One look at an email can rob you of 15 minutes of focus." And that's actually kind of undercutting it. Harvard Business Review says it can take 23 minutes to refocus after checking just one email or chat. So we think that we can calculate the amount of time savings based on some heuristics. Sort of every little action sort of adds up. And on average, we're seeing our users save at least, on average, about 10 minutes a meeting. And so ultimately, our mission is to really empower every person to offload the mundane tasks to AI, particularly around scheduling, and help them recover that valuable time every day. And when you start to collect those drips and drabs from each request, each person can recover a lot of time. But then when you have time being reclaimed for everyone on the team, that becomes really huge. And we think that's really non-trivial. If we think that if you can just save 1 hour a week per employee in a 1,000-person organization, that's equivalent to having 25 more full-time employees. And now you've reduced the amount of time and waste, and then now you can focus more, and now you have made your organization available to respond to others 24/7. And what we've seen is that certain verticals really get outsized values out of this. Folks that have, this is part of their job. Folks in talent, in merchandising, in sales, even in legal, or even your makers. Everybody can really benefit from being able to delegate to Cortana to schedule. For a talent organization, they're scheduling phone screens, day in and day out. But what if they can dedicate that time to actually sourcing and hiring great talent? Merchandising, you want to be able to have a regular cadence with your vendors. How do you automate that and not have to worry about having somebody slip through the cracks? Or sales and making sure that you're responsive to your customers and being able to kind of get as many customers through as possible. So what we've seen is that when this happens, a lot of times we see sort of these heroes within organizations that can really benefit from this, and they kind of create a huge demand. And when their managers see that, they really understand the potential that scheduler has, and so with manager support, oftentimes we can really sort of push this adoption across the organization and really sort of increase the impact that scheduler has. And so when can you have it? Well, scheduler is coming in 2020, in the early part of 2020. It will be a premium offering. We're still trying to figure out what is the right price point there. One question we always get is around compliance. So it will be on par with M365 Enterprise Compliance at GA. And the other thing that people really care about is, where does that mailbox live for the digital assistant? And so I'm really happy to tell you that at GA, we want you to own that mailbox. We want it to be in your domain so that you have control over it. So for example, if your domain was Avengers.com, we want this mailbox to be Cortana@Avengers.com. And after that is that we want you to be able to customize the assistant to whatever you want it to be. So your Cortana@Avengers.com can become Jarvis@Avengers.com. Okay, so we kind of went a little bit over. I apologize for that. But for those of you who are still here, I'm going to give you kind of a sneak kind of path to getting onto the exclusive preview. So if you go to scheduler.ms, you can sign up for the preview today. And if you encounter the page that's asking you for an invitation code, you can use the one that's right up there on the screen, Ignite 2019. And that should get you to go through the onboarding. Simple 3 questions, similar to the ones I showed you. How long is your default meeting? When do you prefer to meet? And what's your time zone? And that's it, and you would be well on your way, okay? And then this is a slide that I did not add, which I just found in the deck when I was going over it, but please evaluate the session. Thanks, and I appreciate you guys staying overtime. I'll be here to answer any questions.